A dispute also arose among them, as which one of them would be regarded as the greatest. But he said to them, the King of Gentiles lord over them, and those in authority over them are called benefactors. But not to those with you, rather the greatest among you must become like the youngest, and the leader like one who serves, for the greater, the one who is at the table, or the one who serves. Is it not the one at the table, but I am among you the one who serves? You are those who have stood by me in my trials, and I confer on you just as my Father has conferred on me, a kingdom, so that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom. And you will sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Simon, Simon, listen, Satan has demanded to sift all of you like wheat, but I have prayed for you that in your own faith may not fail, and you will, once you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. He said to him, Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death. Jesus said, I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day until you have denied me 3 times that you know me. He said to them, when I sent you out without a purse, bag, or sandals, did you lack anything? They said, no, not a thing. He said to them, but now, the one who has a purse must take it, likewise a bag. The one who has no sword must sell his cloak to buy one. For I tell you, the scripture must be fulfilled in me. He was counted among the lawless. And indeed, what was written about me is being fulfilled. They said, Lord, look, here are 2 swords. He replied, that is enough. He came out and went, as his custom, to the Mount of Olives. The disciples followed him. When he reached the place, he said to them, pray that you may not come into the time of trial. When he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, knelt down and prayed, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours to be done. Then an angel from heaven appeared to him and gave him strength. In his anguish he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down on the ground. When he got up from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping because of grief. And he said to them, why are you sleeping? Get up and pray you may not come into the time of trial. While he was still speaking, suddenly a crowd came, and the one called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said to him, Judas, is this the kiss that you have betrayed the Son of Man? When those who were around saw what was coming, they asked, Lord, should we strike with the sword? Then one of them struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus said, no more of this, and he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, the officers of the temple police, and the elders who had come for him, have you come with swords and clubs as if I were a bandit? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me, but in your hour, the power of darkness.
Then they seized him and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. But Peter was following at a distance. When they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down, Peter sat among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him in the firelight, stared at him and said, this man was also with him. But he denied, saying, Woman, I do not know him. And a little later, someone else, on seeing him, said, You are also one of them. But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Then about an hour later, still another kept insisting, saying, "Surely this man was also with them, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." At that moment, while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the words of the Lord, how he said, "Before the rooster crows 3 times, you will deny me." And then he went out and wept bitterly. Now the men who were holding Jesus began to mock him and beat him. They also blindfolded him and kept asking, "Prophesy, who is it that struck you?" They kept heaping many other insults. When day came, the assembly of all the elders of the people, both chief priests and scribes, gathered together, and they brought him into the council. They said, "If you are the Messiah, tell us." He replied, "If I tell you, you will not believe, and if I question you, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." All of them asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" He said, "You say I am." Then they said, "What further testimony do we need? We have heard it for ourselves from his own lips."
When the assembly rose as a body, brought Jesus before Pilate. They began to accuse him, saying, "We found this man perverting our nation, forbidding us to pay taxes to the emperor, and saying that himself is the Messiah, a king." Then Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered, "You say so." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and to the crowd, "I find no base for accusation against this man." But they were insistent and said, "He stirs up the people by teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee where he began even to this place." When Pilate heard this, he asked whether the man was Galilean, and when he learned that he was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent off to Herod, who was himself in Jerusalem at the time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was very glad, for he had been waiting to see him for a long time, because he had heard about him and was hoping to see him perform some signs. He questioned him at some length, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the scribes stood by, vehemently accusing him. Even Herod with his soldiers treated him with contempt and mocked him. And then he put an elegant robe on him and sent him back to Pilate. That same day, Herod and Pilate became friends with each other. Before, they had been enemies. Pilate had called together the chief priests, the leaders, and the people. They said to them, "You brought me this man as one who was perverting the people. And here I have examined him in your presence, and I have not found this man guilty of any of the charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. Indeed, he has done nothing but to deserve death. I will therefore have him flogged and release him." Then they all shouted out together, "Away with this fellow! Release Barabbas for us!" This was a man who was put in prison for insurrection that had taken place in the city and for murder. Pilate, wanting to release Jesus, addressed them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify! Crucify him!" A third time he said to them, "Why? What evil has he done? I have found him no ground for a sentence of death. I will therefore have him flogged and release him." But they urgently demanded with loud shouts and that he should be crucified. And their voices prevailed, so Pilate gave his verdict that their demand should be granted. He released the man they asked for, the one that had been put in prison for interdiction and murder. He had handed Jesus over as they wished. As they led him away, they seized a man, Simon of Crete, who was coming from the country. And they laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A great number of people followed him, and among them were women who were beating their breasts and wailing for him. But Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and your children. For the days are surely coming when they will say, 'Blessed are the barren, and the wombs have never borne, and the breasts that have never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do this when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 others also, who were criminals, were led away to put to death with him. When they came to the place which is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left.
Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothes. And the people stood by, watching. But the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself, if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews," it read. One of the criminals who was hanged kept dissuading him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have not condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong. But he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He replied, "Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying in a loud voice, said,
"Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit."
Having said this, he breathed his last. Then the ceremonial saw what had taken place. He praised God and said, "Certainly this man was innocent." And when all the crowds who had gathered there for the sequence saw what had taken place, they returned home, beating their breasts. But all his acquaintances, including the woman who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance, watching these things. Now there was a good and righteous man named Joseph, who though a member of the council, had not agreed to their plan and action. He came from the Jewish town of Arimathea, and he was waiting expectantly for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down, laid it in a linen cloth, and laid it in a rock-hewn tomb, where no one had ever been laid. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. The woman who had come with him from Galilee followed, and they saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath, they rested according to the commandment.